Hello, everyone. I don't know if you can hear me yet. I believe I am live, so this is my first YouTube live. I'm excited to be here today, and I'm excited to be able to share the information that I have with you. I don't know if I'm actually live yet. All right. Well, I believe I am live. All right, let's start here. For those of you who have joined me today, I would love to see where you are joining me from. And like I mentioned, this is my first live. I'm going to try and set up everything so I can see your chat. All right. So I'm not seeing any comments, and I'm not sure if I should be able to see them. So bear with me as I sort this out. Okay. Doesn't seem like the chat is enabled right now. So let me try and troubleshoot that if it's possible. Okay. Give me a second as I sort this out. But if you've joined me today, thank you so much for coming. I'm going to be talking about grants. It is an area that I have learned over the many years that I've been doing work in the nonprofit world, in the education world. I've been learning little by little about how to acquire free funding so that I can do the work that I want to do. So one of those things that I have done over the years is little by little have learned how to perfect the art of grant writing. And I secured over $40 million in my many years of working in the education field and the nonprofit world. And with that, I've really been able to build up my skill set. And I'm at a point in my life where I'm doing a lot of other things. I've become a full-time investor, a real estate investor, and I don't have a need to write for grants anymore. But it is something that is very useful in any sector. And so when you're trying to solve a problem and you're trying to find solutions, grants are an amazing way to secure additional funding so that you can go ahead and get to the finish line of whatever project you're working on. So what I want to talk to you about is a little bit of, give you a very high level of what grants are, how grants function, how you can have access to grants, and hopefully that will get you on the road to start pursuing grants for your projects. One of the things that I will do throughout my lives is answer questions. So if any of you are pursuing grants or have thought about the idea of pursuing a grant, I would love to see your questions in the chat. We'll work on that a little bit later. I'm going to talk up front a little bit about the different types of grants that exist. What are the common myths about grants? And then I'll be able to get into the questions. So right now, I believe my chat is disabled. So let me try and troubleshoot that. Okay. Okay. Still not seeing what I need. Okay. Give me a second. I apologize. Again, this is my first live, and so I'm dealing with a little bit of troubleshooting. So let me see. All right, give me a second. So unfortunately, I have lost the art of multitasking. I used to be an amazing multitasker in my past life, and I have learned that I can no longer do that. So I have to focus on one thing at a time. Usually, I'd be able to talk through this and do it at the same time, and then still continue with my presentation. But that is not what is happening right now. Okay, I think I am almost there. Let's see. Content client. Okay. 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 I'm getting there. Just bear with me. So I never thought that at this stage in my life I would be doing something like this with media. Yep, I've never done anything like this, and so it is a very new thing for me. So I appreciate you giving me grace as I'm trying to navigate this. Mhm. All right. All right. Let's see if I now have a chat available. Not yet. All right. I will keep working through this. Mhm. All right, I think I am live again. I'm not sure if you hung out with me, stayed with me. I'm hoping you did. So I'm back in here. Let's get this right. I believe I have the chat activated on the side. I would love to see a comment, so you can help me out. Let me know that the chat is actually active and working. Please tell me where you are joining us from, where are you located, and why you came today. What is your interest in learning about grants? I believe everything is moving forward smoothly. So now I'm going to go ahead and get started, tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Luz Ramirez. I am a Latina. I was born in the US. I was born in New York. Both my parents are from Colombia, though. So I was raised in a very bicultural household, very traditional Colombian. So I was able to, I've always been able to move seamlessly through both cultures. So that's been part of my upbringing and part of the exposure that I've had to everything that I've done. So I go back that far because it's really important for me that I am very connected to my culture. And the reason is that I learned very young to speak Spanish. My parents required me to learn to read and write in Spanish. That was something that there were no, it was, this is how it's going to be in this household. That's it. So that led for me to be able to have access to a lot of different opportunities within our community. So I start with that because where I'm at now, everything that I do and everything that I've had the exposure to and the opportunities that I've had have been because I've been bicultural, because I have been very involved in my community, because of all the services that I worked and was a part of, whether I volunteered with them or whether I worked with them, with organizations. They all helped me build up the skill set, which is what I'm talking about today, grant writing and grants. What are grants for? And how do we access them and how do we use them? So just a little bit more about my background. Over the many years, I have degrees in business administration, in administration and organization structure, systems and processes. So that's my background. By a strange twist of fate, because of me being bilingual, I ended up teaching. And so I taught for the school district in the bilingual program for about 5 years. I secured my temporary teaching certificate. I continued my education, and then I moved on to do the different positions in the school district, and I worked in human resources as a teacher recruiter. I then became an administrator for a department, and then I worked in a high position, cabinet level with the superintendent, where I oversaw charter schools. I ran audits of the whole school district. It had a lot of exposure to the grants and the funding where it came from and writing for them. Then I moved into the nonprofit world where grants are pretty much the backbone of the organization. This is how nonprofits are really able to secure the funding for the programs and services that they provide. So my education of grants started out with seeing lots of gaps in the services that we were providing. And I needed to secure additional funding to be able to provide those services, fill those gaps. And grants was what I discovered was the way to do it. So I started applying for lots of different opportunities, and I wasn't receiving them. It was a hit or miss. I'd write 10 grants, I would get one. I would write another 10, I would get one. I would get small grants. I wouldn't get large ones. And as I continued to do it and perfect what I was doing, I found that I was securing more grants and I was securing larger amounts. And so it really was a trial and error. And so this is what I want to talk about and provide education so that you're starting in a position where you don't have to go through the whole trial and error, and you can avoid some of those common mistakes that are usually made in the world of grant writing, and maybe a little bit of understanding. A little bit more outside of the grants that I'm a part of currently. I am an investor. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a real estate investor. I moved into this role 100% back in January. I left my W-2 where I was the chief administrative officer of a nonprofit. I was leading departments and programs and creating more funding for services, growing the organization, really growing the services available to the underserved populations in our community. It was a great role for me. I loved it. And again, gained a lot more experience in grant writing. Through that organization, I secured over $40 million in free in grant funding for services. And so that is one of those areas where I really was able to hone in on the art of grant writing. I've been in the nonprofit world for over 20 years. I am currently the vice chair of the Illinois Housing Development Authority Board. This is a statewide board where all the funding that comes from the federal government comes through IDA, which is the short name for the Illinois Housing Development Authority Board. And we grant these funds out by way of low-income tax credits, 4%, 9%, to developers who are looking to build. So LIHTC, all these funds that come from the federal government that are coming through IDA, this is like, again, it's a statewide agency. These are grants. These are grants that come through our organization, and then we give them out to developers. So this is one way that developers who are looking to build and construct and provide housing are able to secure funding for housing. There are other ways that you can also access funds that come from the federal government. These are passed through the state, and the state then receives these, and then they grant them out through the many different departments that they have. So it could be the Department of Economic Development. It could be the Department of I'm trying to think, DOJ, it could be Department of Justice. It could be through the department that works with victims of sexual assault and domestic violence. So grants are designated by the federal government, and then they will grant them out to the states. They will grant them out to the different entities, again, such as IDA. And then those organizations will then take them and chunk them down into smaller grants and then give those out as well. So I touched a little bit about IDA. So I'm going to go into a really high level of the 4 types of grants that you should know about. And I already mentioned federal. These are grants that the state, the U.S. government decides that they are going to grant out, and they set the parameters. With those parameters, they're going to say, we want the funding to go for this. We want these deliverables or these outcomes. And then whoever submits an application, you need to meet all these guidelines. Okay. State grants, that is another way that you can actually secure funding. Some of these just come because the state has decided that the state government has decided that they have a need in their in their state that needs to be covered throughout the entire state. And so they will create grants that then the different municipalities can apply for, organizations and businesses can apply for. So those are state. They don't necessarily have to come from the federal government. Many do come from the federal government. So there are different types of grants. Then there are local grants. These could be awarded out through your city, through your county. Going through your municipality to find out, okay, what types of grants they have is a way for you to be able to access funding locally. And then there are private foundations. These could be foundations by individuals or family offices that have created a foundation because they have a desire to help in one area or another. And so they will put charitable funds into their foundation that they will then grant out through small grants. Some of them are actually large grants. Some that are very familiar might be the Gates Foundation, the Bill Gates Foundation. There are lots of foundations out there that shouldn't be discarded. These are all ways that you can access funding. And then there are also corporations. Corporations will also create grants that they will give out. So why are grants awarded? It basically comes down to they want to solve a problem. So what is the problem that you're trying to solve? And then what is the target population that the problem needs to be solved for? So that's ultimately how you should look at a grant when you want to apply for it. When you see a grant becomes available, you need to see, is this a problem that exists in the area that I want to create the service or the project that I want to build? If that exists there, then chances are that there will be funding available for it. Or are you working with a specific target population? When I say target population, I may be talking about maybe it's veterans. You want to provide housing for veterans, or you want to provide housing for youth aging out of foster care. So these are all different types of, there are different types of target populations that you may want to serve, but then you want to identify what that problem is. So in the world that I'm currently living in, it's housing. I'm trying to solve the problem of housing. So as I'm pursuing grants, I'm looking at what is the problem that the area wants to solve, and then what is the population that I need to solve it for, and then I'm bringing those together and saying, okay, I need to provide housing for this population so that I can secure this funding. Okay, so that is a really high level of what are the types of grants that you should know about. So what makes money? How are we grant ready? Very simply, you need to have the correct entity. You have to have a clear purpose. What is it that you're trying to solve? Who are you trying to serve? And then a budget. You need to have a budget set aside. You need to figure out ahead of time, how much is it going to cost me to do this? How do I need to pay for salaries? Do I need to pay for operations? How much? Do I have partners? Who are my partners in this project? And then do you have the capacity to execute? So this is an important one. You may have everything. You may have an entity established. Maybe you're a solopreneur. You have a purpose. You have a budget that you've created. Maybe you have a partner. But if you don't have the capacity to execute, you're probably not going to receive the grant. So what does capacity mean? It means that you have the ability to deliver on what you are going to offer for this project. So that to me means I have staff that can support me, or maybe I don't need staff. Maybe I don't have other jobs. Maybe I don't have other projects that I'm working on. This is my sole project. So all my time is dedicated to this. I am the sole person who's going to be executing this. And maybe I do have a partner, and the partner is their strength is finance side, financials. So then now I have the person who's going to deliver, who's going to execute, and I have the person who's going to handle the finances, the budgeting. So maybe that is enough capacity for the project size that I have and for the grant size that I'm going to be receiving. Maybe it's a much larger grant, so then maybe my capacity needs to be much larger. Also, do I have the experience in the field that I'm trying to apply for? So these are all things that that they are going to be looking at as you're applying for grants. So entity, the correct entity, your purpose, your budget, the partners, and the capacity to execute. Okay, these all are all the different components to make you grant ready. All right. And then common grant myths. This is, I think, a really important one because oftentimes we don't understand what a grant is, or we simply say, well, there's no way I can access it. Or, you know what, yes, I'm going to get the free money and then I'm going to go ahead and spend it any way I want. Or, you know, all these different myths about it. So I'm going to go through the three main ones. Free money with no strings. That doesn't exist. So you actually do get free money. Okay. You do get free money. However, there are some components that you do need to comply with. So what does that mean? I'm going to submit an application, and the application is quite timely. It requires me to provide a lot of information, do a lot of research, provide a lot of data ahead of time. And so that is part of the work that I have to put in. All right. So the submission of the application requires time. Once I submit the application, I'm actually going to be very clear about what type of service or project I'm creating and I'm delivering. So that means that it has to be measurable, and then I have to have outcomes, and I have to have a timeline within which I'm going to use it. And I have to be very clear on the budget. It cannot go through without a budget. And so the budget delineates how my project is going to be done. So as with all that, I'm submitting that information to them beforehand. If I get the funding, I now have to make sure that I'm reporting to them either quarterly or monthly and letting them know how the project is coming along. I have to demonstrate that I actually am delivering and I'm actually spending the budget in a way that I said I was going to spend it. So I'm appropriating the funds correctly. I'm spending it down properly within the timely manner. I'm also delivering on the project that I stated I was going to do, and I am able to demonstrate some of the outcomes. So that is the strings, I guess you could say, that are attached to the free money. Now, if you're able to deliver on everything and you spend down the funds the way that you said that you're going to, in the end, you keep the money. You do not have to pay it back. All right. Now, the other before I get into the next one, I'm going over common grant myths. So if you're joining me live right now, tell me where you're watching from. Drop a 1 in the chat if this is helpful. Again, this is my first live. I've never done this before, so I'm hoping that I'm able to provide some content that is useful to you. And if not, then I guess I can change it up. But I would love to see that those who are here with me now are able to get some value out of what I'm sharing. I don't know if the chat is active, so I'm trying to see if anything is happening in the chat. I don't see anything happening. So it would be helpful if you could chime in here and tell me where you're joining me from, that you're actually listening and getting value out of this. I don't know if the chat is still disabled. It shouldn't be. Maybe I didn't do something properly. So, okay, yay, thank you. Hi, Juan. Thank you for joining. Yes, the chat is active. Thank you so much for letting me know that you're here. All right, I'm going to continue talking about the common myths, okay? The next common myth that we have is, do you need a nonprofit in order to get grant funding? Well, that is not true. Most grants are available to nonprofits, but that doesn't mean that you have to have a nonprofit. There are ways that you can partner with a nonprofit, and they, through that collaboration or the partnership that you have, can go ahead and provide funding to you. So there are different ways, and I don't want to get into the detail, the nitty-gritty right now, but let's start with the fact that you do not have to have a nonprofit in order to access funding. You can be a developer and access funds to develop housing. You can be a nonprofit that provides funding and pays for individuals to be housed, and you could be the end provider who is providing the housing. You have the housing available. You have the houses, the apartments, the properties available. And the nonprofit is going to be receiving the funds through some kind of a grant, and they're going to pay you to house the individuals. So what you do is you build a partnership or collaboration with the agency directly, the nonprofit, so that they know that you are always going to be providing the housing, and you know that they are always going to be providing you the funding to house the individuals that they serve. Okay, so that is one way that you can collaborate. As I mentioned before, you could be a developer applying directly with a city, directly with a county, or with a statewide agency like the Illinois Housing Development Authority Board, receive funding through them so that you can actually develop and build the housing that is needed for either affordable housing or for specific populations, as I mentioned before, target populations. And then the other grant myth is only big organizations get funded. This is also not true. You can apply for smaller grants if you're just starting out. And once you get a few under your belt, then you start getting more comfortable with securing grants. Or you actually could be a new organization, or you are established business. You've been around for a long time, but you're not a large organization and you have a lot of experience. So you submit an application, you find a grant writer who can write the application for you. You have experience, you can demonstrate experience, you have a lot of partnerships in place with your community. You've been around for a long time. Maybe you're not very, very big, but you have experience and you're known. That is enough for you to actually be able to secure funding. What they're looking for is that you have experience to deliver on what you say that you're going to deliver. Okay. So again, you do not have to be a big organization in order to get funded. All right. I'm going to go into some Q&A in case any of you have questions. I'm glad to see the chat is finally moving. Okay. Thank you. Somebody made a comment here. If you can't see the chat, sign out and then sign back in. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for hanging in there with me during my technical difficulties. As I said before, this is my first live chat. I am testing this out to see if this is a platform that will work for the future. Thank you for joining. If you came in here, I would love to see who is joining. Let's see, this is Tanda in sub 2. Thank you, Tanda. And sub 2, if there's somebody in here who's not in sub 2, thank you very much. If there's somebody in here who's unfamiliar with sub 2 is a creative, a community of creative investing for real estate investors. And you're joining us from Aiken, South Carolina. Thank you. I'm actually going to be going out to South Carolina, hopefully in January. I'm not quite sure. Well, actually, I will be driving through there on Tuesday. So that's not true. I'm flying into Jacksonville and I'm driving through, and I'm hoping to stop there at some point in the near future. I would love to visit Charleston. Anyway, I've heard it's beautiful. I have friends who live there, lots of friends from Charleston, and a lot of them are in the sub 2 community. And sub 2 is a community created by Pace Morby, where individuals who are interested in real estate and investing in real estate, but learning how to do it in a creative manner. So we're all familiar with hiring a realtor and buying a property and doing it the traditional manner. Well, through sub 2, we're able to do it in a creative way by not using the traditional banks. We're able to work with the sellers, possibly do some seller financing. So there are lots of ways that you can acquire properties creatively. And so that brings us to the grants, because through grants, it's an opportunity to do all three things. You can find properties that already exist. You can find sellers who are looking to dispose of properties that they are no longer using, maybe tired landlords, maybe they've outlived their purpose. And there is grant funding available for rehabbing. There is funding available for new development. And a lot of it has to do with what I had mentioned earlier. If you have a problem that you're trying to solve, or if you have a target population that you're trying to serve. So let's think about motels and hotels. So sometimes motels, they, over time, they just get run down, and they, the landlords don't really care to take care of them and bring them up to speed, develop them or rehab them. They're just done. It's income for them, but maybe they hit a point where they're like, I'm done with this. So acquiring a hotel or a motel that is run down is an excellent opportunity for you to repurpose it and maybe access some grants that you can use to put towards serving a target population that is underserved. So my focus is underserved populations. What is an underserved population? It's a population that usually is low income, maybe comes from a background where they've faced a lot of adversity. Think about youth aging out of foster care. So in the example of youth aging out of foster care, I could take a motel or a hotel that's run down. I could purchase it. Maybe I could work something out with the landlord, finance some of it creatively, maybe do a seller carry where the seller is, I'm going to be paying the seller. They're going to be my bank by not going through the regular bank. They're going to agree to go ahead and over time, I make payments to them directly. I take over the hotel. I go in and I do some rehab, and then I convert it into a place where I rent out to youth aging out of foster care. So where do the grants come in on this? I could probably secure funding for rehabbing. Maybe there's a local, maybe the state has some funding available for that I could go after it. And then I can also work with an organization that pays for youth transitioning into adulthood. So there are funds available to pay for housing, and sometimes it's a transitionary stage. So they could pay for a few months, maybe they pay for 6 months while the youth adjust to finding housing or to finding a job, to finding, to maybe getting their education. So there are lots of ways that you can use grants to provide housing for the population that you want to work with. So I'm going to take a look at the chat here. Actually in Las Vegas. Okay. I love weddings. I'm one of those people who actually loves to go to a wedding. So I hope that she has a wonderful wedding in Vegas. You want to provide affordable living for single parents and their minor kids. Okay, wonderful. So yeah, there are lots of different ways that you can do that. So single parents is a population that struggles with being able to pay for a household. One thing that many people don't realize is that when families split up and there's a divorce, there's a huge burden because typically there are two incomes coming into one, supporting everyone. But then the divorce really takes a toll on the split up. Sometimes the female may end up with the house, but she can't keep the house up, and so the house ends up being sold. Or they have to downsize. They have to find another way to live in it. They have to move into apartments. And then there are a lot of different components that really impact their ability to continue paying for housing at the level that they were paying for it before. So it was interesting. I was having a conversation with somebody whose sole purpose is to provide housing for single parents. And the way that she wants to do it, and I thought it was really great. And so she's trying to figure out, she was talking about starting a nonprofit. And my thought was, ooh, a nonprofit, let's talk about this. And so we did talk about it for a little bit. The only reason I say don't start a nonprofit is starting a nonprofit is a whole other job. It's a whole other business. And if you want to run a business and a nonprofit, you can't do it on your own. So you have to make a decision. The other part about a nonprofit is that with nonprofits, you have to do a lot of fundraising. Grants do not sustain a nonprofit completely. There are operations that go behind running a business, and a nonprofit is a business. You cannot walk away from it and say, oh, it's not a business, it's a nonprofit, it's charitable. Absolutely not. A nonprofit is a business, so you have to run it like a business. So there is operations behind it. You have to have a CEO, you have to have finances, somebody in charge of finances. You have to have somebody running your staff, so that's HR. You have to have somebody running the actual programs or services that you're providing. So all that requires funding, and grants only cover 10% of that. So I don't recommend a nonprofit at all. So I dissuaded her from the nonprofit idea only because she doesn't need to run a separate business. She's already running a business. She's running a real estate business. She's an investor. She owns properties. Her goal is to buy multifamily homes and make them available to single parents with children, with minor children. And the idea is that as they are paying for the rent, that funding, some of that funding is set aside so that once they hit a point of maybe 4 or 5 years, there is enough money set aside for a down payment for a home. So I love the idea. I thought it was absolutely wonderful. This is a way to be able to move these families transition them out of renting and becoming homeowners. So what I suggested to her was to look at creating a foundation for her organization, for her business. And through that foundation, she actually can set aside she can put money into the foundation for that purpose. And she actually can do grants herself. As a foundation, I mentioned this earlier, is one of the ways that you can apply for grants is through a foundation. So now once you have your own foundation, she can set up these grants for the families who are living in her properties, who are renting from her. They can apply for these grants, and then they can receive a one-time grant for a down payment to put down on a new home, and then they can then move on. So there are lots of ways that you can actually provide affordable housing for single parents and minor kids, and then also find ways to move them out of that system so that they can secure permanent housing in the future. So anyway, I wanted to share that because that was one way that I found that we were able to talk through, and I love the idea that she can create her own foundation and then start granting out small grants, or who knows, maybe she's able to set aside a lot that she can do large grants to these families to put as a down payment through the funding that they've been providing her through their rents. So I absolutely love that she wants to do that. If anybody else is out there who would like to share and bring up questions, this is the time. I know I had some technical difficulties at the beginning, so I appreciate those of you who stuck around. If there are no questions, thank you so much for joining me. I would love to find out what it is that you want to learn about so that I can tweak my lives in the future and talk a little bit more in detail about the areas that you're looking for. I really do appreciate you for joining me, Tanda. I know there are a couple others out there. Juan, thank you for joining me as well. I'm going to be wrapping up the live very soon. Because I know I spent a lot of time here talking a little bit about some different projects. But before you go, please feel free to download my free guide. I do provide a little bit of information in there on how to get started in the grant writing, how to prep for grant writing yourself if you're looking to become a grant writer. Let's see. And then I really do appreciate you for joining me. Make sure to subscribe if you're not subscribed to get the notifications when I'm going to go live next. This was a test run, trying it out on a Saturday at 1 p.m. I'm not sure if this was the best time, but I'll try different times as well. So we'll see. And then I will let you know when I'm going to go live again. So thank you so much for joining me. This was great. Thank you, Tanda. And thank you for those of you who joined me.